19. Notice has been duly posted. Roll call.
Mayor Joe Chilson.
Present.
Jim Benash.
Here.
Jerry Every.
Here.
Ron Jertson.
Here.
Jim Olson. Harvey Bertrand.
Here.
Bob Muth.
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Public input. Anyone wishing to give public input, please step to the mic. Give your name, address, and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Pastor Park Hunter. My address is Onalaska United Methodist Church, 212 4th Avenue North, here in Onalaska. And as we begin the season of Lent tomorrow with Ash Wednesday, for Christians, this is a traditional time of repentance and reflection as we think about the ways we've fallen short and resolve to do better. That can also go for institutions, churches, schools, cities. And so this evening I thought I would offer a prayer of repentance, and those of you who'd like to join are welcome to. Merciful God, we confess that we have not loved you with our whole hearts. We have failed to be an obedient people. We have not done your will. We have broken your law. We have rebelled against your love. We have not loved our neighbors, and we have not heard the cry of the needy. Forgive us, we pray. Create in us clean hearts. Guide us in leadership and in citizenship, both earthly and heavenly. Free us for joyful obedience through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to give public input? Second call. Anyone wishing to give public input? Third and final call. No.
Hi. My name is Kim Smith. I live at 436 Mayfair Place, and I am running for 3rd District Alderperson, which will be decided in April. I'd like to use this opportunity to just give you a chance to get to know me a little bit better. I'm an Onalaska native and OHS grad. I've spent almost all of my life in the city of Onalaska as a resident, and I've been active many years in local government, serving on the park board, and also as several terms as alderperson. I'm currently a quality assurance coordinator at City Brewery. I've been married 30 years next month, not to give my age away, but I have 2 adult children who also graduated from OHS, and I have a master's degree in servant leadership and also a graduate certificate in ethical leadership for organizations. When I reflect on my past service to the community, what I am really the most proud of and thankful for are the relationships that I've built with people. As aldermen, I'm sure you all know, our relationships are valuable. We have an opportunity to leave a legacy for our community. This can only happen when we all work together with each other within the communities, the neighborhoods of our districts, with city employees who are experts in their field, and with our neighboring communities. Relationships are vital. Significant projects I was a part of in my previous tenure include acquisition of the waterfront property, planning and construction of the aquatic center, and the library expansion project. Multiple times I have played a leading role in bringing separate groups together for the common good of Onalaska. And some things that I've consistently supported that I feel are vitally essential to our community include maintaining and improving the infrastructure, protecting water quality, preserving the greenway, and supporting business owners and emergency services, and then also, of course, always keeping the taxes low. I am a fiscal conservative. To be fiscally conservative in city government, there needs to be a balance between the maintenance of city interests and proactive, progressive growth. Proactive rather than reactive, progressive meaning happening in stages. Our city is a dynamic entity that faces constant change. As leaders, we must have good vision for the future, and we must be proactive. We do this by constantly learning, listening, adjusting, collaborating, and using our wisdom. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to give public input? Third and final call, anyone wishing to give public input? Okay, public input is now closed. Report from the mayor, or actually, we have a public hearing. For consideration of an adoption of a resolution to vacate and discontinue a portion of the alley from Locust Street to King Street between 4th Avenue North and 5th Avenue North, located in Section 5, Township 16, Range 6. Resolution addressed under the non-consent agenda. So we're going to do that later. But we'll we'll take the vote later. Yes. Okay, I will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor?
Good evening, Jeff Morehouse, 1979 Sandalwood Drive in Onalaska, representing Onalaska United Methodist Church, 212 4th Avenue North. I'm chairman of the trustees. We've requested the vacation of the alley for the purposes of expanding our facility. We're kind of tight on the block, and we do own the entire block, including all sides of the alley. The alley just goes in our block, so it doesn't extend either direction, and so we're requesting that it be vacated so we can use it to expand our building. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Second call, anyone wishing to speak in favor? Third and final call, anyone wishing to speak in favor? That portion is now closed. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Second call, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Third and final call, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? That portion is now closed. The public hearing is now closed. And are we going to take this now or later for a vote?
That's totally up to the council.
Okay, let's take it now, then. What is the wish of the council?
Second.
Motion made by Jerry to approve, second by Ron. Discussion. Bob?
This was at the sub-plan committee meeting, and we've been looking at this for a while, and this, abandoning this portion of the alley just makes total sense to me. It's gonna fit right into their plans for expansion of the church. I was able to look at the plans at the sub-plan committee, and I'm really delighted with what they have planned. The alley is not used for any other traffic other than the church anyway. It does not affect any other resident. To me, it just makes common sense to approve.
Okay, anyone else wishing to speak?
This is not on the agenda. This item's on the agenda during the non-consent agenda as item number 9A. So I think that it's a worthy motion. It's just made not in the order of the agenda.
13A, right here. Yeah. Okay, we will hold off on the vote. Okay. Report from the mayor. Library statistics. Well, I'm here to tell you they had year-to-date 16,284 people come through the door. And it's about equal for both months. And that's, and they raised $2,200 in rents. So that's we have a library that a lot of people are using, so that's a good deal. So we'll move on. Recognition of probationary completion of the following City of Onalaska firefighters, EMTs. Carrie, would you like to swear them in?
Yes, so I will go in the order they're listed here on the agenda. So Jared Benson will be the first one I'll meet at the podium. having been appointed to the office of City of Onalaska firefighter EMT, swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin, and will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability. So help me God. Thank you. Next is Aaron Fuller. If you'd like to raise your right hand, repeat after me. I, Aaron Fuller, having been appointed to the office of City of Onalaska firefighter EMT, swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin, and will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability. So help me God. One more to go. I, Edward. If you'd like to raise your right hand, repeat after me. I, Ty Edwards, having been appointed to the office of City of Onalaska firefighter EMT, swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin, and will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability. So help me God. Congratulations.
Okay, thank you. Recommendations for approval and/or possible action from the following committees, commissions, and boards. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member requests removal, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in the order of business in the non-consent agenda. Anyone wishing to remove anything from the consent agenda? Jerry?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would, under item 6A, under item 6, Finance Committee, item C,
C, okay.
and item D and item E.
Of the same one?
Yes, under the same one.
Okay, so D and E?
C, D, and E.
Okay. Then we will move those to, they will be items G, H, and F. No, G, H, I, excuse me. Don't know what my alphabet is anymore. On the non-consent, they will be items G. So item C will be item G, item D will be item H, and item E will become item I. Okay, anyone else?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Anyone else? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Motion made by Bob, seconded by Harvey to approve the consent agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Abstentions? So moved.
Yes, Mayor.
Okay,
Point of order.
As Sean had pointed out, those items that have been removed, asked if we could actually rifle them in prior to item 8F. Those actions should be taken prior to the resolutions. So GHI, just to take them as we get to the non-consent.
I can't hear a thing you're saying.
If we would do what's the new G, H, and I, well, in particular, G and H need to be taken prior to items 1 through 5 under 8F.
Okay, so we'll do them, we'll move them between E and F?
Yes.
Okay. So they'll become E2, E3, and E4. Okay. Anyone, oops, lose my head here. Okay, so now we have those moved. The non-consent agenda. Finance Council.
Thank you, Your Honor. Item A, vouchers. The following are a list of monies expended since the last Common Council meeting dating January 9th, 2018, in the dollar amount of $10,230,597.69. I'll make that a motion to approve.
Second?
Motion made by Bob, seconded by Jim Benage to approve the vouchers. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? So moved.
Thank you. Item B, authorization to approve transfer of funds from worker compensation to miscellaneous expense in the amount of $1,300 and street signals electronical to street signals contractual in the amount of $2,500 to comply with Government Accounting Standards Board's GASB General Accepted Accounting Principles. And I'll make a motion to approve.
Second that.
Motion made by Bob, seconded by Jim Benage to approve $1,300 for street signals, electrical to the street signals, contractual to the amount of $2,500. Comply with the GASB and GAP rules. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? So moved.
Your Honor, I misspoke earlier. This is actually where those two resolutions should go, before these resolutions, not where I had you put them last time around. Mistakes do occur. My apologies.
So now they should go here?
Correct.
Okay. I'm getting kind of confused here.
I can see why. Thank you.
Okay, let's take C, the old C, D, and E now, Bob.
Correct. It would be the, B would be accept the Omni Center financials for 2017. Is that B?
No, except the general fund.
Okay, we're going to item C. Accept general funds financials for 2017. Authorization to approve transfer of funds within each department to comply with Government Accounting Standards Board, GASB, Generally Accepted Accounting Principles, GAAP, as presented to Finance and Personnel on February 7th, 2018. I'll make that a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Bob, seconded by Jim Benage to approve the general fund financials according to the GASB and GAAP standards. Discussion. Jerry?
This is what I asked the holdout for, Your Honor, and council members. What we're doing here is transferring money around, and I'm generally against, and this is the policy and has been done, and it works. But I am against this policy, and I will vote no, so that's what I wanted the holdout for. To explain that, these things are being done according to generally accepted government auditing standards. Yes, we are doing that. And the auditor, his job is to make sure that the information that we provide is free of any financial or material misstatements, and they are. The city's goal is to provide services that improve the quality of life for our residents, not to generate profits as companies do. We are transferring $225,000 of surplus money into the 2017 general fund, in the general fund, to a special revenue fund that's called a carryover in some parlance. It's unexpended funds from 2017 budget. Some would say that these funds belong to the taxpayer, as I would. Some of these surplus funds are because we have conscientious and dedicated department heads and people working for us who have caused us, because of their ingenuity and persistence and good choices, to have this surplus. So we're fortunate to have that. But $3,293,000 of our revenue comes from fees, permits, assessments, and other forms of additional income. That's about a third of our budget comes from other sources other than property tax. And then we are using these surplus funds to fund last-minute projects that have not been properly reviewed or vetted by the council. And that's what's happening. We're being asked to approve some things, and to some they may not seem very critical, but they are items that now have been added because we have a surplus. We want to do some new projects or complete some that haven't been budgeted. The amount of the year-end surplus is hard to predict because we also have what we call an unassigned surplus. That is, there are several things that have been purchased in the year that aren't paid for, projects that are in progress and not completed. Those all have to be completed. That's a separate fund. What I'm talking about is the unassigned surplus. So I'm just asking that that you understand why I'm voting no, and it's for that reason. When we do our, after the April election, we do our reassignments of the committees and so on. I do intend to introduce a resolution to combine these ending funds as assigned. That means already committed, ordered, unfinished products, and unassigned reserve. 10% of which would remain in the reserve fund, which we have, and 90% would go to what I would call a budget stabilization account to be used to directly offset next year's budget. In other words, trying to return some of these funds to the taxpayers. That's my explanation. I thank you for your attention.
Okay, anyone else? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Nay.
One nay. Abstentions? So moved. Item D now.
E as in Edward? Delta. Approve designated fund balance, DSFB General Fund and/or Special Revenue Funds 2017. Subsection 1, adjust existing DSFB for 2017, and 2, establish a new DFFB for 2017. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. Motion to approve by Bob, seconded by Harvey.
Yep.
Discussion.
That would be the same rationale, Your Honor, and council members that I just explained. Thank you.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay?
Nay.
One nay. Abstentions? So moved.
Item C, Resolution 8-2018, to transfer funds to and from various departments in 2017. Go back to E. Item E, approval of purchasing a drone not to exceed $10,200 using $5,000 of donated funds and using designed fund balance for the remaining $5,200. I'll make that a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Bob, seconded by Jim Benage to approve the purchasing of a drone not to exceed $10,200 using $5,000 of donated funds and designated fund balance for the remaining $5,200. Jerry?
Again, the same reason, Your Honor, except there's a little twist to this one, and that is the gift that we got. The gifts are nice to get. They're always appreciated, and I know they're heartfelt. However, my feeling is that the gifts should come before the council, before they're accepted, simply because of incidents just like this, where you have to add funds to them to complete whatever project was intended with the gift. That should have to go through the council procedure with normal vetting and with council taking a look at it. And it should be into next year's budget. And so for that reason, I am voting no.
Bob?
I gotta agree 100%. When we start making people who want to donate anonymously, and they want to be anonymous, we should respect that desire to be anonymous. And I also heard people trying to find out who gave that donation, which is actually, to me, a rather insult. But in this case, the council did have action. We were decided to do the additional $5,200 to obtain this drone, which can be used not only from the police department, the fire department, the engineering department, the park and rec department, the whole city, all departments are going to be able to use this. And it's going to be technology, and technology, we either keep up with it or we're going to get run over by it. And I think the council did make the decision to add the $5,200 so that we could get that. The council did take action on that. If the council decided we didn't need a drone or it was a bad idea, we could have turned down the donation. We didn't. We accepted it, and now we've added to it. And I appreciate the people that donated the $5,000, and I'm also going to respect their wishes to stay anonymous. But I think this is a good thing.
Jerry?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just to respond to that, I could care less who gave the gift. I really don't, Bob. I really don't care, and thank them very much. That's heartfelt, as I said. I guess maybe you weren't listening. But the fact is, it was on your agenda on last week. There was supposed to be an explanation by somebody to the other council members. As you know, as you are all aware, with the system that we use here, we can attend some of these meetings, but we're not allowed to ask questions. There was to be a presentation made at that meeting, and the chief was here, and it wasn't made. We were sitting wondering, what's it all about? So I did speak to the chief beforehand, and he explained it to me. So I knew what it was about. But as far as anonymity is concerned, yes, I would respect anybody's anonymity, and that is not any reflection on the reason that I'm voting no. But I will vote no. Thank you.
Ron?
I agree with Jerry as far as the council has to have some oversight as a whole on gifts that are getting given to the city, whether it's art or it's machinery or just monetary gifts. I also have a concern on the drone. You're starting from scratch, so that means you've got insurance liabilities, you've got training liabilities. The dollar bills that we're talking about are just the very beginning. As far as the technology end of it goes, we're in I would call it in the infancy of drones. from what I've seen of them, they're quite frail. And it takes quite a bit of training to get an individual to be proficient. So when you are talking about using it as a broad instrument through the city, it almost has to be one individual running it. So that means if the fire department needs it, we're gonna have to have somebody that's competent on the fire department or an individual that can be there. If the police need it, it'll be the same. The parks, I do see some value in it down the line, but I also see that this is going to cost a lot more money. I'm gonna vote against it for two different reasons. I don't think we can justify it at this point. I don't see anything that we can't do without it. And I'm more concerned down the line what it's gonna cost just to keep, let's say, every department competent to run it.
Harvey?
Yes. I'm not sure which, I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm not sure which department it was, whether it was the sheriff's department or police, I'm sorry, the police department or fire department, but we had a situation, not sure the exact details, but there was a situation last year in which I believe there was a boat that was swamped or about to go over the dike. I think that there was I'm not sure if we had sent someone out to save the individual or what, but if there had been a drone, we'd have been able to send that out there at least to survey the situation and bring back the information to us. Again, I believe it is modern technology, and I think given the amount, the relatively small amount that's designated here, I think it's a very well good purchase.
Okay.
I sat through and listened to, I think it was at F&P when we talked about this. I was in the audience and also had listened to why the necessity of it. I mean, in this instance, I think we're being proactive. I've heard proactive and reactive. I think this is proactive. Yes, there may be costs, but you haven't listed what they might be. Anyway, I think when you start talking about not only what goes on the river, what happens in our parks, what happens in a fire, if you have a hostage situation, I mean, this all comes very important to the city. And we have to move along with progress and technology. To suddenly say that this is an unnecessary expense, I think is a disservice to the city. And this is an important part of what we need to do to be proactive and not at some point in time say, well, why didn't we have this tool and we didn't get it? We have the opportunity. Now is a good time to do it.
Bob?
And I discussed the issues of how we use this drone. If we have one lost child and the police department needs us to find that child, is that child's life worth $5,200? Yes, I'll spend $5,200 if one incident results in the safety of our firefighters, the safety of our citizens, or the safety of a police officer. That drone made a difference. It's money well spent. I'm sure the fire department, when they're fighting a fire, would love to have a drone to take a look at different angles to see what's the best way of fighting the fire. If we have a hostage situation, I don't know what the future holds for us for incidents that are going to occur, but I want to give our staff any tool that I can possibly supply them with to do their job and to do it in a safe manner. So I am totally for this.
Jerry?
Well, thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Not to belabor the point, but yes, I agree with you. In fact, if you'll ask the chief, he'll say that I approve of that. Once again, you missed the point. The point is the way we're using the funds and where we're getting them from. That's the point. I don't object to how it's going to be used, when or why. It's a good idea. Thank you.
Anyone else? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Yay.
2 nays. Abstentions? So moved. Okay, we're at,
Item C, Resolution 8-2018 to transfer funds to and from various departments in the 2017 general fund budget. Make a motion to approve.
Second?
motion made by Bob, seconded by Jim Benage to approve Resolution 8, 2018. Discussion. Hearing none, that's roll call vote.
Jerry Every,
Nay.
Ron Jertson,
Yes.
Jim Benash,
Aye?
Bob Muth,
Aye.
Harvey Bertrand.
Aye.
So moved.
Item D, Resolution 9-2018 to transfer from the 2017 general fund budget to the special revenue fund, special projects, Dare Great, Onalaska Police Department, account in the amount of $3,500. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
Motion made by Bob, seconded by Jim Benage to approve, excuse me, Resolution 9-2018. Discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Harvey Bertrand,
Aye.
Ron Jertson,
Nay.
Bob Muth,
Aye.
Jim Benash,
Aye.
Jerry Every.
Motion carries.
Item E, Resolution 10-2018 to amend the 2017 general fund budget and to transfer special projects equipment replacement fund 2017. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
Motion made by Bob, seconded by Jim Benage to approve Resolution 10-2018. Discussion?
I guess, Fred, could you explain that resolution?
This is very similar to what we did the same time last year. To give you a little history, there is through the budget process in August of 2017, you gotta keep in mind, I'm doing different years, closing the books out, so gotta make sure I get these years straight. Is administrator wrote a letter that the department heads were to have a 0% increase across the board, and that included the special projects fund. The special projects fund is the dollars that we're talking here being slid over via resolution, and what the city had done is the figures turned in by the departments were not higher than what was budgeted, but we were able to utilize and substantiate the dollars that they needed to spend to do their, to stay within budget, but utilized undesignated fund balance within the equipment replacement fund. And by doing this, this allows the same practice to continue for the year 2019, where the taxpayers will be using some of our fund balance and not levying for dollars through taxation.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sir.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. City
Just
Administrator.
to add to what Fred was saying, this body did in the previous budget approve use of the undesignated fund balance for expenses, which freed up additional space that we did not have to levy. So, Jerry, as you're talking about returning it to the taxpayers through the budget process, we've already done that, and we'll continue to do so in the future with that. That's the first amount used for expenses, and then we levy above that, and we don't necessarily have to levy the full amount. So what you're looking for, I think, we have some action and a history of doing.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, all in favor? Well, roll call vote.
Bob Muth,
Aye.
Jerry Every. Ron Jertson,
Yes.
Jim Benash,
Aye?
Harvey Bertrand.
Aye.
So moved.
Item F, City of Onalaska 2018 capital projects, general obligation corporate purpose bonds and note anticipation notes. Number one, Resolution 3-2018, initial resolution authorizing $175,000 general obligation bonds for parks and public grounds projects. I'll make that a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Bob, seconded by Harvey to approve Resolution 3-2018. Discussion. Okay, hearing none, that takes a roll call vote.
Jim Benash,
Aye.
Harvey Bertrand.
Aye.
Bob Muth,
Aye.
Jerry Every. Ron Jertson.
Yes.
So moved.
Item 2, Resolution 4-2018, initial resolution authorizing $3,450,000 in general obligation bonds for street improvement projects. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Bob, seconded by Ron to approve Resolution 4-2018. Discussion. Hearing none, that's a roll call vote.
Jim Benash,
Aye.
Harvey Bertrand.
Aye.
Bob Muth,
Aye.
Jerry Every. Ron Jertson.
Yes.
So moved.
Item 3, Resolution 5-2018, resolution directing publication of notice to electors. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Bob, seconded by Ron to approve Resolution 5-2018. Discussion. Roll call.
Jerry Every. Bob Muth,
Aye.
Harvey Bertrand.
Aye.
Ron Jertson.
Yes.
Jim Benash.
Aye.
So moved.
Item 4, Resolution 6-2018, resolution providing for the sale of $3,625,000 general obligation corporate purpose bonds. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Bob, seconded by Ron to approve Resolution 6-2018. Discussion. Hearing none, roll call.
Harvey Bertrand.
Aye.
Ron Jertson.
Yes.
Jerry Every. Jim Benash.
Aye.
Bob Muth.
Aye.
So moved.
Item 5, Resolution 7-2018, a resolution providing the sale of $1,570,000 note anticipation notes. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Bob, seconded by Harvey to approve Resolution 7-2018. Discussion. Hearing none, roll call.
Harvey Bertrand.
Aye.
Ron Jertson.
Yes.
Jerry Every. Jim Benash.
Aye.
Bob Muth.
Aye.
So moved. Okay, Personnel Committee.
Thank you, Your Honor. Item A, review and consideration of authorization to replace a police officer position. Hope?
Yes, I have this on the agenda, and I apologize for it not going through F&P. However, we didn't get the notice until the day later. So we received a resignation on February 8th for a police officer, and we'd like to fill that position, so we wanted to get it on council. We do have an eligibility list that we'll be pulling from this, so we will not have to re-advertise. We will just need to go from that list. So I think there's like 5 or 6 names that we have remaining, so I'm just asking for permission to fill that position.
Second.
Go ahead, Jerry. Second.
Motion made by Jerry, seconded by Bob to approve the review and consideration of authorization to replace a police officer position. Discussion. Harvey?
So the job description stays the same, and the salary stays the same?
Anyone else? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Abstentions? So moved. Judiciary Committee.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is ordinance 1604-2018 to amend Chapter 6 of Title 13 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Onalaska relating to accessory uses and sign ordinance. First, second, and I think we said final reading.
We need to suspend the rules first.
Suspend the rules for final reading, please.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion to suspend.
Second.
Made by Jerry, seconded by Bob. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Abstentions? The rules are suspended. Okay, now you can give it the,
Then I would ask that we approve this for first, second, and final reading.
Second.
okay, so motion made by Jerry, seconded by Bob to give ordinance 1604-2018 its first, second, and final reading. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? So moved. Administrative Committee.
Thank you, Your Honor. Item A, review of fees for mobile home parks. I'll make a motion that we approve the fee amounts as discussed in subcommittee.
Okay, motion made by Bob, seconded by Jerry, to approve the fees for mobile home parks. Discussion.
Mayor, I know we had this in committee, but we don't have to specify in the council meeting what those fees were changed from and to.
No, we can just do it according to the schedule that was presented.
And if you'd like, I can give you what the fee structure will be.
I think that'd be helpful, you know,
That
for,
would be a good point of order.
yeah.
Okay, in Administrative and Judiciary Committee, motion was made for the structure for the mobile home fees. From 1 to 50 lots would be $90, and this is an annual license that we're talking about. From 51 lots to 100 lots is $180, and over 100 lots is $270.
Thank you.
Ron?
Those fees are directed to the mobile home park owner. And those fees were raised so that we could cover the expense of the bookwork. They haven't been raised since like 1973.
Yeah, thank you. And just as a general point, I think it's important to be specific on items like this so that those affected could hear it in the council, because a lot of times those affected don't have time to come to committee meetings or whatever, whereas they might be listening or observing this meeting.
Okay. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? So moved. Board of Public Works.
Thank you, Your Honor. Item A, review and consideration of corrosion control study for city water system, including professional engineering and laboratory services. It was the recommendation of the Board of Public Works to proceed with corrosion control study with Process Research Solutions not to exceed $38,280.
Okay, motion made by Jerry,
Second.
second by Bob, to approve the review and consideration of corrosion control study for the city water system, including professional engineering and laboratory services. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Abstentions? So moved. Land Commission. I can't do it because well, I can. Yeah, but I can't. Okay, I can't make the motion, but I can read it. Resolution 11-2018, final resolution to vacate and discontinue a portion of the alley from Locust Street to King Street between 4th Avenue North and 5th Avenue North, City of Onalaska, La Crosse County, Wisconsin.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Jim Banash, seconded by Jerry. That's a roll call vote.
Yes.
It's from the beginning. Bob Muth,
Aye.
Jerry Every,
Aye.
Ron Jertson,
Yes.
Jim Benash,
Aye.
Harvey Bertrand.
Aye.
So moved.
Your Honor, we did have a motion on the floor when we did go back to that original public hearing, so I don't know if that should be,
13A.
when we had the public hearing, they had made a motion to approve it.
Oh, that's right.
But we went back to the agenda, so it just dies.
Right, so just
Yes,
that no action was taken.
correct.
Okay. Okay, report from the city administrator. Mr. City Administrator, you're on.
Thank you, Your Honor. I was asked to prepare just a memo regarding boxes involved with the files within the Cooley Region Joint Municipal Court. I think there's been some concern of the number of boxes going from a box or two to 30 or so boxes. I did reach out to Sean, who's been heavily involved with the case since day one, and then I did also review this with Hildy, just so since she's been here, she can confirm her insight as well. I think Sean has the greater detail there. You can review that. But as he points out, back in June, Ms. Lynch in the courts had brought her concern of some tickets not properly entered, and some of which were several years old. At the time, to quote Sean, we didn't know the volume. The volume was unknown, but we generally communicated that the amount of records she found was several boxes, a box or three, including a drawer in the office. As we had her set aside the things that she had found as she continued to go through and reorganize, that continued through August, where she indicated she had more boxes of things she did not know how to address. And she stated the amount was 6 to 8 boxes. So we can start seeing the growth of boxes here. To be clear, it's not that there were additional boxes relocated at this point or found or discovered. These were existing files that were not organized or were mislabeled, and as she was going through and pulling things out, she was creating boxes. So I think in terms of things being discovered at this point in time, it is existing boxes, existing files, misorganized, being set aside to be organized. So I account for the increase, as I stated here, that she was already going through the filed records and discovering more items that were out of place or irregular. This continued through September, when, due to additional concern about the material, 7 boxes were removed by Sean's office for his review. At that time, there were additional 10 boxes in the office, with up to 20 more downstairs in dead records, which now, if you're adding up, goes to about 30, which is the number that we have heard at that point in time. Again, as I stated earlier, it was not so much that the boxes were just discovered, it was that what boxes we assumed were in dead records upon going through there had been a jumble of records that were, some were dead, some were not. They should have been dead. They should have been labeled correctly as dead. So it wasn't necessarily new records, it was just a continuation of the records that were disorganized and misplaced and identifying where those records were. And so my review as where we started with 1 to 3 boxes and ended up with 30. 30 basically included every box in dead records, including things that should have been dead and filed, but because they were not properly filed, were still in existence. So there is my summary there. Sean has some greater detail, step by step, and then includes some of the correspondence that we've had, including the agreements to do searches. You can kind of follow the track there where we stand today's date with the boxes of data. It did indeed go from 1 to 3, grew to 30, but again, it's every record that we've had, not necessarily rediscovering new boxes, more or less of identifying the fact that things that we thought were filed appropriately were not. It was disorganization.
Okay, thank you. Report from Alderperson Benash. You're on.
All right, there's some property located on the 13th Avenue South and Hickory Street that was designed for the expansion of the cemetery. And I had brought it to the attention of our city administrator, asking to look into the possible sale of this property. It's my understanding that I think the city bought this back in maybe 2008, 2009, something like that, from a private party. There may have been some stipulations with the sale of that property. The climate for cemeteries has kind of changed, and the amount of space that we have in an existing cemetery may be adequate, if I'm not mistaken, for another 10, 15 years, perhaps, something like that. But the idea is to see if we can put this property back, put this out for sale, possibly, with the idea of putting that property back on the tax rolls. And then, of course, preserving our present cemetery for the history of the city of Onalaska. And perhaps maybe some funds might be designated for upkeep. But that's the reason for bringing it this evening before the council, to see if we'd be interested in, if we can sell this property. I guess that was going to be looked into by our city administrator. Eric, do you have anything further on that?
I can give some history. Obviously, the history precedes my tenure here. So I know, Jared, we had
Jared can fill in the spots, yeah.
as well. 2008, conversation with Raymond and Margaret Pelishek occurred. The owners of the property, they own property nearby too, on the south side, correct? A house on the south of that. At that point in time, the property was appraised by Midwest Professional Appraisal, Inc. for $270,000. At the time, there was conversation regarding selling it to the city for expansion of the cemetery, including possibly closing off Hickory there, and having consistent land. In exchange for that, they would sell it at a price $30,000 less than the appraised price to the city. In 2008, I'm not entirely sure what the history is. The record doesn't really show it, but no deal was done at that point in time. Fast forward then to 2012, there was an offer to purchase. Raymond Pelishek is now deceased, so it's just Margaret Pelishek at that time. Offer was discussed with the city, and again, in terms of what communication occurred in the conversations, I do not know. I just have the record. There was a offer to purchase made by the city to Margaret Pelishek in the amount of $180,000, so now we're about $90,000 under. It was done in 2008 for that. So in 2012, March 2012, the listed contingencies, additional provisions and contingencies are, number one, seller shall have the right to erect a monument of mutual agreement on size, shape, and placement on the property, noting the prior ownership of the property by the Pelishek family. And then the provision is they're going to finance it through a land contract for 3 years, I believe, and then other conditions. But the only thing that really restricts anything there would have been the right to erect a monument of mutual agreement between the city and the Pelishek's family, noting the prior ownership. But there's no language there specifically identifying it for use of the cemetery at this point in time. There's nothing specific in the offer to purchase there. I'll let Sean answer the question, but then actually in the closing documents, well, the offer to purchase at $180,000 was made with Margaret Ann Pelishek. The closing, the land contract, the warranty deed, is made with Margaret Ann Pelishek as trustee of a trust. I haven't identified any trust documents yet that could identify made for the purchase, again, of cemetery or otherwise. But I guess the difference would be a trust would, in theory, continue beyond the life of Margaret herself if there's some requirements there. So as far as I can see, there's nothing restricting that. Sean, you may disagree. If there's something history there that could allow it, I think it's more of a policy decision. Land purchased for a particular purpose at a discount could be used. A monument could still be erected. Funds could still be used to sponsor the existing cemeteries. Again, as far as my review is, I think it's really more of a policy decision if that's something. Jared and I, we did discuss number of parcels perhaps could be utilized there, and market rates for parcels, 60,000 or so. I just would warn you in terms of putting 8 plots there at 480,000. Without water or sewer, we're not likely to sell it for 480,000. We have to sell it at a discount, or we have to put it in those amenities and then sell it at a full market rate. So we wouldn't necessarily get 480,000 for it if marketed, but the decision to market it or not could be something that, again, is a policy decision.
Jared, do you have anything to add?
I think when Mr. Pelishek approached the city, I met with Mr. Pelishek in 2008, and he had owned that parcel for a number of years, probably about 25 years previously. Before that, had a house just to the south of that parcel. And the decision was made at that time not to pursue any offers, but then when Mrs. Pelishek came forward again, a few years later in 2012, the city did proceed to purchase that property. I think the reasoning for the purchase at that time was for future cemetery expansion, with the thought that as we have seen the sales of lots decline, go at a slower pace now, we are still selling lots, so we are receiving income off of that. Fred could explain it better, but most of the income goes into our operating budget. Part of it goes into a perpetual care fund, and part of it goes into a capital improvements fund to maintain the facility. So the reasoning for that was thinking, well, if we had 30 years worth of lots left in the existing cemetery, by securing this land and having it contiguous to our existing cemetery, so we could have economies of scale for maintenance versus getting out somewhere else if the city so chose at some point in the future to find another plot of land for a cemetery. Obviously, we know that currently land within the city limits is very hard to come by, was the fact that then a generation from now, there would still be lots to sell and hopefully garner income from them. So that was kind of the history behind it, moving forward from the history of that purchase. So
Can I ask a question? Yeah, and you said, Jim, that, if I understand it correctly, you said we have sufficient lots for 10 to 15 years? Is that what you said?
I would say at the current rate of purchase, it'd be probably 25 or 30 years before we would run out of lots in the cemetery.
That's basically tomorrow. And
Depends
kinda
which
over.
geological terms you're
Yeah.
speaking, but
I have a question. Okay, once those 30 years, are passed, then what do we do? If we sell it, then what do we do? Where do we go from there?
you would not, your city cemetery would be full at that point. You would maintain what you have, would have no longer have any lots for sale. There would be a decision to be made if you wanted to pursue more land or go to a different spot, unless there's some new technology at the time.
Yeah, and this is not geological time, but 30 years from now is a very, very limited amount of time. I think to assume that we could, let's say, reasonably find additional land at that time is probably a bad assumption. But I'm still listening to see if I'm wrong here.
Well, I think, again, the reason I brought this up was basically to see if the city would be interested in selling that property, put it back on the tax rolls. There is a change in the way that cremation, things like that, and if we have, now this 30 years, are you talking about the expansion part or just the present situation?
No, I believe that our present cemetery will probably last 30 years at our current absorption rate. As you have pointed out, we are seeing more cremation interments in the cemetery. We're probably 50-50 now, I'd say, probably pretty close to what cremations are versus full burials. I would say probably 20 years ago, it was probably closer to 90-10, 80-20, so we've seen a large, significant change. We have also altered our cemetery rules within the recent memory, the last couple of years, to allow up to three ash interments in a single plot, so with a full burial. So that was a change that we've seen as something that has been coming forward with more regularity also. So we are getting more use of the existing land, if you want to call it that, but I guess at some point you will run out of land. There will be no more land for the cemetery, if that's 25, 35, 30 years at some point.
Another question or statement, actually. If there were a specific use for, let's say, the funds that are generated from this sale, if we had a specified need, let's say, for something that we, have a very great need for, maybe I can see this. On the other hand, the land is valuable. It seems as though in the future, with the growth, hopefully, that we see going to see in the city of Onalaska, I think I would hate to see land to go that would be very, very valuable in the future.
Okay, Ron?
Yeah, I'm familiar with the piece of real estate up there, and it's tucked right into a neighborhood right across the street from the cemetery. I'm with Jim. I think it would be a real good piece of real estate to get back on the tax rolls, and a number of things you could do with the real estate. I think truly, this council probably needs to take some thoughtful action toward getting some new real estate for a cemetery. 30 years is not very long. We do not have the real estate within the city limits, so we're gonna be looking some other place. The amount of money that we would wind up sticking into it and get out of it for taxation, I think would be beneficial to the city. The piece of real estate is quite slopey, and it is tucked right in residence. So I don't think, I know if I owned real estate on either side of what you were considering to use for cemetery, I'd be opposed to it. Just because it doesn't fit, does not fit the layout of what we got going on up there. Not anti-cemetery, just not right there. Thank you.
Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I need to ask Jared, how many lots could we obtain from that parcel?
Residential lots, it'd be approximately 8, depending on how you laid it out. Yes, correct.
And the other question then, I would ask, I think it's worth talking about, but I don't know what procedure you would use, is we would need to decide, I guess, if we want to do that, at least find out what it might bring and then what the future cost might be if we have to obtain other land. I think those are all good things to look into.
Thanks, Jim.
Go ahead.
Just as a follow-up, again, this is just to discuss the possibility of selling a property. And the other question comes down, does the city still want to be in the process or have the process of a cemetery? I mean, the present lots that we have now may be sufficient for a couple decades. And after that, if that becomes full, do you still want to be in the cemetery business and just maintain what we have? I mean, there's a history there at that particular, it's a park as well as a cemetery, is a way you could put it. So we want to maintain it. We're putting a lot of money into the structure around the cemetery to make it look good. But again, I don't want to think, well, hold on to the money and then hold on to the land and then some point in the future sell it. The issue is we should do something, yes, in the present, rather than wait for the future. And be respectful of the person, the family that sold us this property, and perhaps their wishes of having some kind of monument, either in the present cemetery or at the location where the property is now. But it appears there might not be any encumbrances to selling this property. I might want to reach out to any family members and advise them that we may be thinking of doing this, but the next step, I think, would be, would we like to go forward and see about the possibility of sale?
Harvey?
Yeah, when you mentioned families, I am very concerned about a number, whomever these people might be, that would have a very much of a sentimental attachment to this cemetery, and would want to have the option of expanding it into those lots. And as we know, that there's quite an emotional attachment based on the cemetery committee and such. They put a lot of effort into upgrading the appearance of the cemetery. And I think to take away the possibility of adding land to the cemetery would be a very bad idea.
Okay. Ron, report from you.
This is regarding what Jared or Eric covered earlier. I did not know that he was going to be presenting that today. But what I will add to that is, in reading the minutes from the joint municipal court, I realized that Harvey asked for Judge Brinkman's resignation. And I would take that first as the taxpayer, he asked for it, and secondly, I would take him asking that, as a alderman, asking for that resignation. I think that Judge Brinkman has kind of showed the taxpayers and this council that he has no intentions of stepping down. We could sit here and talk about the many things that have gone wrong. My point is, we need to deal with Judge Brinkman. I'm talking with Eric, there's still some more problems going on with Judge Brinkman over there. I'm not surprised. Anybody that's been in the La Crosse area knows Judge Brinkman is kind of his own guy. I think at some point in time, we've got plenty of time to deal with it. Re-upping into the joint municipal court is a tool. I think sitting around waiting for another voting cycle is improper for us to do. We're not gonna get better performance out of this judge. It's not gonna happen. This council can do something about it, can do it now, can do it later. We can step out of the joint municipal court enough to let them deal with him. That would be later this year. It doesn't need to happen tonight, it doesn't need to happen next month, but as you close out 2018, there could be some decisions that would be made. I'm very, very uncomfortable in many different ways on what's going on over there, having that individual run a chunk of our city with lack of oversight by, pretty much looks to me like he doesn't care what we think or what the taxpayers think. I've read a lot of the stuff that he wrote. I've sat through a few meetings. He doesn't respect you guys. It's not surprising. I'm not surprised. Doesn't respect the taxpayer. He showed it. I would ask, has anybody heard of his resignation? Seen an email? Telephone call? I haven't heard anything. And I don't get my information from the radio or the newspaper. I rely on this body to get what I need. I'm not going to read the newspaper to find out. I believe we need to consider going down the line how we move this individual out.
Bob? I would ask Sean to give clarification. We have to remember this is an elected position. The citizens voted him into office. It's not something that the council approved. We did not put him into that position. And as far as authority to remove him or anything like that, I don't believe we have any authority to do such a thing. It's up to the voters to make that decision. So, I mean, we're very limited on the authority that the city has. So, Sean, could you sort of explain the issues?
And then we'll come back.
I would like to speak before Sean.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
I did. I just explained a way around it. There is another tool. It's called a recall. And I respect the voters, but voters can be misinformed. They can have a moving target with an individual that's in office. That person could be voted in and be highly rated, doing a good job, and then things change. I'm not going to get into the details of what changed. They have, and it's not good. First thing I'll tell you is I respect the voter. Absolutely. Not trying to circumvent them. I'm trying to help the situation. There are some tools. Recall would be one. I wouldn't recommend it. We've got the ability to do something that, at the very least, we can get out of it. firmly believe that if he's not going to resign, and it appears to me he's not going to, you know, and I commend Harvey for asking for it. I don't know that I would have. Being that's been said, I support Harvey on it. I would ask everybody up here to consider what Harvey asked of him. I will say I would ask for his resignation also now. I will go public with that. I've done it on the record now, and I feel strongly about it, and I'm glad Harvey was there to do it. Some other things will come out on my other point here coming up.
Harvey?
Yeah, I stand by my request of a month ago or whatever it was. And I know it's an elected office. However, I think it's important that we, the council, take a position on this, which I did and which Ron has. And I think it's important that the public know our position and our distrust and the current situation. And I am wondering if it's possible for us to take a vote of, what would it say? There's a term for it. Yeah, a vote of no confidence, because the term going forward kind of bugs me, but anyway, going forward, as to when the next election cycle comes about, if it were stated and on record that the council had a no confidence vote, that would play, I think, very much into the voters' decision process. So I would like to suggest that we have a no confidence vote on the issue.
I don't believe we can do that, seeing as it's not on the agenda. Would I be correct?
This is, the way the agenda item is set up is it's for discussion purposes, for information to be shared, and if there was going to be an action item, it'd be put on next month's agenda, and the council could move ahead next month with that.
Ron?
I did that on purpose, Sean.
Okay.
I did that on purpose because what I want is I want everybody tonight to understand that we had a taxpayer and a alderman step up and do what I didn't feel I could do, even sitting in the meetings and listening. I'm glad he did it. I commend him. As a council, we need to move on from this, and some of the things that we're doing is going to get that done. Thank you.
Okay, closed session.
One more item.
One more thing.
Oh, B, I'm sorry.
I'll keep this short. Discussed this with several aldermen. I think the only one I haven't discussed it with is you, Bob. It's pretty general. What I would like to see in light of these meetings that are happening at earlier portions of the afternoon, what I'm asking is that this council would consider, at least with the meetings that we have some oversight of, to get them at a more of a consistent time of the day out of business hours. I would consider that anything past 6 o'clock for the guys that work. The value of the committees and the value of being at the meetings is such. I'll give an example of it from my perspective recently. I would have really liked to have been at this joint municipal court meeting, even though I was able to discern what I needed out of the minutes and a phone call to Harvey. I was comfortable not being there, but that's kind of the exception, not the rule. I tend to want to attend as many meetings as possible. Of course, nobody can attend them all, but if you've got those meetings out of the regular working hours, it makes it much easier for the councilmen and women that are going to be serving to attend them. There may be some reasons for these meetings to be at certain times of the day, but I would ask that this council would consider that some point down the line.
Yeah, all I saw was what you have on the agenda, committee meetings. I have no clue. I was not given any information whatsoever. But I think it's a good idea to take a look at it, and I agree with you that some meetings can be later. I think the joint municipal court, though, is a meeting time that is set up by them. That's got nothing to do with this council for setting up their meeting, so that's their responsibility. But I don't think it hurts to look at the other meeting times to, it's something to look at.
Okay, Ron?
I think we can include them in on the conversation where we're at with it, and I think it's to their benefit if the joint municipal court stays in Onalaska. It's to their benefit to have as many of us councilmen and women there as possible. We do have a say in what's going on in our city, and they're part of what's going on there. So it's valuable to be at meetings. It just is.
Well, and I would agree that the other jurisdictions that that make up the joint municipal court would also be able to attend, not just ours, not the council, but Holman and West Salem, all of their committee members or people interested too. So it's a point. It's just, the only thing I bring forward is it's their decision, their meeting time, but the idea makes sense to me.
Yep. That's all I have.
Okay. Closed session, to consider a motion to convene in closed session under section 19.85, parent 1, parent C of the Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and under section 19.85, parent 1, parent G of the Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved. In this case, the review of the fire department personnel-related matters. And to consider a motion to convene in closed session under section 19.85, parent 1, parent E of the Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. In this case, consideration, development, and approval of a negotiating strategy regarding Town of Madera fire contract. If any action is required in open session, the council will reconvene in open session to take the necessary action and/or continue on with the printed agenda.
Motion to go into closed session.
Second.
Motion made by Harvey, seconded by Ron. Roll call.
Jim Benash,
Aye.
Jerry Every, Ron Jertson,
Here.
Harvey Bertrand,
Aye.
Bob Muth.
Aye.
Yes, sir.